Hey everyone, welcome back to Ninjago News TV. Today I am ranking the episodes of Season 8. Season 8 was honestly my favorite season by far, and I want to take the opportunity to rank the episodes individually and explain why I dislike them or like them. At the very bottom of this list is episode 75, The Mask of Deception, or in other words, the season premiere. This episode is at the bottom of my list for good reason. It just felt very slow moving and there wasn't any action except for the beginning. I did enjoy the beginning, and that was probably the best scene, to be honest. There was definitely action, and the Lloyd Mr. E fight was very fun to watch. Later on the episode, it gets extremely slow. The parts where they're showing the mechanic and Nia fighting off those people, that's kind of boring. And then anyway, they rally back at Borg Tower, and Hutchins comes, and then they protect the Royal Palace and the Emperor. Yeah, that's all extremely boring. Then we finally get to meet Harumi. This is slightly interesting, as she greets the ninja and expresses their highlights and stuff. And then the rest of the episode is pretty boring, with just Hutchins giving a tour. So overall, this is at the bottom of my list for good reason. It just feels very slow, and there's little to no action. Taking the number 9 spot is episode 76, The Jade Princess. I like this episode because it put more highlight on the character of Harumi. We got to know her a little better, but the other episodes in the season are by far better than this one. The action is just getting started in this episode. We get to see Harumi and what she struggles through. We get to see her parents reprimand her, and then also some Loi Rumi scenes in which they sneak out together. I love those scenes, personally. And I love that Ultraviolet was also just getting started. She had a big role as a villain in this episode. She was probably the main villain of this episode. And then, of course, the Mask of Deception, I can't talk today, gets stolen in a really fun scene to watch. But overall, this episode is nothing compared to what we see in the future. Taking the number 8 spot is episode 79, Dead Man's Squall. I enjoyed this episode, but again, other episodes are much better. This episode felt like a major filler episode. In reality, the ninja we didn't need a separate episode for the ninja to travel from Ninjago City to Primeval's Eye. That could have been like even a half of an episode. So that's why I consider this to be like a filler episode. And again, this episode was mainly devoted to cracking the mystery of the Samurai X. It is revealed to be Pixel. I do like this episode, though. It has some really fun scenes, like the Samurai X fight, the whole spider thing. It's really cool, and I love the Pixel Zane moment at the very end, where she finally reveals herself as Samurai X. I like this episode, but it just feels like a filler episode that didn't really need to happen. Well, I mean, it did need to happen, technically, because the whole Samurai X mystery, but it just felt like a filler episode to me. Again, good scenes, but not amazing. This episode also felt like a filler episode. So, in the number 7 spot, we have episode 78, Snake Jaguar. This episode was cool because it introduced Kilo, who, over the season, I got to dislike more and more. He has some really bad line choices, and that's pretty much the writer's fault. But anyway, I'm not going to get deeper into that. He seemed interesting enough in this episode. And I like the emphasis on Zane, the Zane flashback. That was really meaningful to finally learn. Well, we didn't really fully learn, but we got an idea of how he got his powers. This felt like very nostalgic because it felt like Ninja Ball Run, episode 17, except not as good. I didn't like that it only focused on Zane, and the other ninja pretty much had no involvement, unless you do count Cole, who had a slightly bigger role in this episode. Anyways, the race was all really fun to watch, and I love the Mask of Deception being introduced, and at the end, of course, we learned Mr. E is a Nindroid. In number 6, we have episode 77, The Oni the Dragon. This episode had a lot going on to it. We start out at the beginning with a short Harumi scene of Harumi getting acquainted, of course. Then we have Mistake. Meanwhile, Zane and Cole are interrogating Luke Cunningham. Then, of course, at the end of the episode is the best, and not to mention the Dareth returns, and then that amazing fight scene at the end. But what really got me here was the backstory. This episode was the main history lesson. Every season pretty much has a history lesson, if you know what I mean, where there's some kind of flashback or story being told. This is it, and it does it very well. I like the little graphics that they show here with the Oni the Dragon, and I love that after 8 seasons, we finally learn about the first Spinjitzu Master's backstory. That fight between Mr. E and Lloyd and the other ninja at the end is phenomenal. It's really amazing. And of course, Dareth is Dareth, and he's still humorous. So anyway, really good episode at the time, but there's so much better to come. We're halfway. Episode 80, The Quiet One, takes my number 5 spot. This episode was really good, to say the least. I considered this in episode 81 to be like more 2 parts, kind of, you could say. This episode sets things up big time, but there's not a lot of action going on either. We do get some more Lloyd and Harumi scenes in which Harumi is still asking Lloyd if he wants Garmadon back, which is really suspicious. And then, of course, she does kiss him, and I like the jungle scenes. It's definitely stuff we have seen before in Ninjago, and it's kind of getting old now, I gotta say. Like, in Season 6, you had those worm thingies, and then you had the Grundle in Season 2. Yep, Season 2. In this episode, you have a crab-like thing, which hasn't even made its real appearance yet. I love that scene where the crab was chasing Lloyd and Harumi. I just love the jungle scenes with the not strangler weed. That was Season 5. Anyway, some strangler tree thing. Then, as for the ninja themselves, there's basically no action. They're just fixing up the bounty, which is really getting old now. Fixing up the bounty, that's old now. It's not really something new to the series. But, anyway, at the very end, we do learn that Harumi is the quiet one. But the action hasn't even started yet. This is where it got really hard to do my rankings. I put episode 82, Dread on Arrival, in the top 4. We finally get to see the Temple of Resurrection, which is, as many people did theorize, in the Palace of Secrets itself. I love the little cage mechanism thing that they put Lloyd and Misako in. Then I love that Harumi's finally taken on a true villain appearance. Let's face it, her casual outfit did not pass for a villain outfit. I'm glad that the writers did realize this and gave her the outfit that she deserved. Now, as for the actual episode, it's really amazing. We get to see more heart-crushing Lloyd and Harumi scenes, especially that final scene at the end where Lloyd sends Harumi off. It's really heartbreaking. I mean, he actually felt for her. And then the episode itself, lots of action. We see the ninja infiltrating the Palace of Secrets. I don't like that the Katana version 11 Kai's boat. I absolutely hate that it just appeared out of nowhere, and it was only there for like a minute before it got never used again. I hate it when Ninjago does stuff like that for vehicles. They just make them pop out of nowhere and then never use them again. I really don't like that, but they do it all the time, so it's probably not changing. And then at the end, we're left off with a great cliffhanger of Garmadon's hand coming out of the rubble. Taking the number 3 spot is the season finale, Big Trouble, Little Ninjago. I dislike and like this episode for various reasons. I'll tell you what I love about this episode. I love the final Harumi fight. I really like that she put the Mask of Hatred on again, and that she battles Lloyd a final time. I like the incorporation of Garmadon into this episode too, where he sees Misako for the first time since his death. He sees Misako, he battles Misako and Nia. That was a cool fight. And then, yeah, now I'm gonna get into what I dislike. I absolutely hate the Colossus idea. Why? It felt very unnecessary. I mean, you already have enough villains. You have the 3 Sons of Garmadon generals. You have Harumi. You have Garmadon. Do we really need the Colossus? Also, the idea felt far from original. A big hulking brute. We've seen that before. That's not original at all. And it just didn't feel original at all. I didn't like the Colossus one bit because of this. It wasn't a creative idea, and it could have been so much better. I also think that Garmadon's powers don't really have any rules either. if you can just create that, it's kind of crazy. But the goods are really good, and the bads are nitpicks, you could say. So I also love that this episode doesn't end with the villains losing. This is great. I mean, I'm one who doesn't like how Ninjago always ends with the ninja magically finding a way to win. I don't like that at all, and I like that this season was different. The villains actually win, and the ninja don't win. It's different, and I love it. Number 2, episode 83, True Potential. This episode was fabulous. The Lloyd and Garmadon moments really win it. The writers know how to convey emotion exceptionally. And it's mainly through these 4 words. I have no son. Garmadon said those 4 words to Lloyd. This episode was amazing solely because of the Lloyd and Garmadon interaction and fight. And that's why it gets up here. I love that Garmadon finally has powers and they're acknowledging that he is the elemental master of destruction. He was really weak in season 2. But compared to now, he's so powerful. In season 2, he was just some weak mastermind who even allowed himself, well, not allowed himself, but he got manipulated by a greater evil. Now he's super powerful. The emotion is super strong in this episode, and it is mostly Lloyd's episode. So overall, amazing. Just the fight is so entertaining to watch, and there's so much emotion. Especially that final scene where the picture blows away. Wow. Remember a couple minutes ago when I was talking about episode 80 and I said the action hadn't really started? This is where everything gets revealed. Harumi's intentions, a really emotional Harumi flashback, everything gets revealed. And that is why this episode is number 1, my favorite episode, by far, no competition in this season. The Lloyd and Harumi moments are incredible. The fight is amazing. I love that Harumi puts on the mask. I love how she reveals her intentions. She reveals them tragically, and she taunts Lloyd. She's an amazing villain because of her emotional connection to Lloyd. This is why I love Harumi as a villain. Her motives are so deep. They're so emotional. As for the rest of the episode, there's nothing much going on, and I honestly didn't care for the scenes with the rest of the Sons of Garmadon and the ninja. The scenes with Lloyd and Harumi is what won this episode over for me. There's so much emotion, and Harumi's motives are incredible. It's finally acknowledged that she's a real villain, and she wants Lloyd to feel the emotions. She wants Lloyd to feel emptiness. That is some really deep motives. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, share with everyone you know. We'll be finishing up the set review series next, and I will see you next time.